the golden age of board games. Truly, we are living in this with the amount of miniatures, with the amount of titles, with the development of both board games that have a solo component, a campaign component, multiplayer component, a very dangerous place for me to be, a completionist with poor impulse control, various seasons, expansions, X-Packs, character packs, monster packs. This is a great time to be involved in the hobby. But when we look back to the past, not only for inspiration or looking at different game systems and being inspired by it and saying, hey, these mechanics worked really well. You know, there was something special about these mechanics. And looking for the equivalent or the comparison in modern board games, that's one aspect, but also recognizing that some classics are out there, whether it's excellent board game design or just a really cool title, you know, implementing something in the moment, or look, they got development correct and they got lucky with putting it out. I think there are certain titles out there that are just classic and absolutely timeless and are just really fun to play over and over and over again. Maybe we would call them historic games. A great example in the wargaming side is Ogre. Ogre has been in print for, I don't know how long. I mean, I should know that. I backed the massive Kickstarter edition. I've got my name on the side there for that. And I've been playing Ogre almost as long as Warhammer 40K. It's a great game, one versus many. One side has one super tank. The other side has all this other tech and tanks and infantry and missiles and outposts. It scales. It's a lot of fun. I mean this in a good way. The mechanics are simplistic. You can just pick up and play it. And for a long time, it wasn't in print. Now it's back in print. It's just a great classic title. So within that framework, and I'm going to vote in a moment, but I'd be curious to see, those of you who have been playing board games for a while, or maybe you've explored some other titles, what are some titles that need a reprint? Now, I know that's easy to say, very hard to do, because sometimes these older titles, we don't know who owns the copyright. Or with an example of Hero Quest, for the longest time, the copyright was held by like two groups. You had to resolve that. But look, we got a reprint of Hero Quest. I never would have thought I would have seen that day in that moment. So if anything was possible, if everything was on the table, what would be your vote for a reprint, a refresh, an upgrade with some modern components and bringing that into the here and now? What would be your vote in the comments? Now, my vote, of course, is like 5 or 6 titles, but one title that I've enjoyed playing over and over again and I think is really unique, is really unique and onto something special, a little bit clunky in some areas. I don't mean that in a negative way, because certainly I could never design something like this. But I think this game is ripe not only for the market, but also for expanding and kind of streamlining the rules just a little bit. Barbarian Prince, Dwarf Star Games. This is a solo single-player game. Your father, the king, has been killed. You've been cast out of the kingdom, and you have a number of turns, a number of days to raise enough gold to buy a mercenary army to retake your throne before the usurper kind of cements themselves on the throne, and that's it. Now, how you do that, this is kind of an overland crawl. You've got a map, and you travel through the map, and you engage at different random points on the map. It's very, very random. So if there's some ruins on the map, it could be multiple types of ruins. It could have different treasures in it. It has that Mage Knight feel with, you never know really what you're going to get, but you can sort of influence that random because you know, okay, on a woodland hex, it's going to be these possibilities, in a ruins or mountains, these type of possibilities. It's a tremendous push your luck because much like Magic Realm and some of these other kind of realm type games, the early games that were in the Dungeons and Dragons, or I should say AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons era, you'd have a goal. Got to get 50 gold. Got to get X number of victory points. How you go about doing that, that's up to you. Push your luck, play conservative, hit up the obvious areas, build your character up and go for broke for the big treasure. It's a very, very interesting game in that it plays differently every single time, but it's that singular quest. So you know what you have to do, but how you go about doing it, layered over with what the game itself presents. Now, the clunky side a little bit is you have to look up various points. There's kind of a section of the book where, much like Tales of the Arabian Nights, you're looking stuff up and you're going through it. You get used to it, that's fine. But if there was a way to maybe do that with cards, so you draw from different decks, although probably from a book format, if you expand it, you can get a lot more in with a lookup than cards itself. It is also 100% a solo type game. You want to kind of talk about choose your own adventure, game books, lone wolf, AD&D, one against many, or is it one against the darkness, four against the darkness, one against many, that kind of dungeon crawling engine. This game is like that, but you're only one player. I could see though, you could homebrew it out. Maybe someone's done it on the board. You could play with two barbarians. You could play with a barbarian, the primary player, Barbarian Prince, and maybe 3 or 4 NPCs, which would be your friends that they could journey on the map themselves and you play as a team. Or maybe they work with you in those quests, adding some certain weight. Certainly there'd be a way to kind of expand that out to 4 players. Currently, the game is released to the wild. You can print and play it. I've never seen an original copy. I'd love to play on an original copy with that kind of old school metal miniature. I've got a print and play version that I printed myself. I'd love to upgrade the components to something with a little more heft, maybe some cubes and some trays. That's been in the works for years, but a reprint, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that type of game. Okay, turning it over to you, my fellow board gaming enthusiasts. What game needs a reprint? Could be from back in the day, or it could be pretty recent. And what made that game, to you, for you, so special?